Okay, so we have a lot going on in this scene now. A lot of stuff animating. It's almost too much. I think we may even have to rearrange some stuff to make it a little less noisy or busy over here. But we'll worry about that later. Right now, there's one thing that's missing. Whose birthday is it? Whose present is this, right? And so I'd like to introduce you all to a new character named Noah. And so we're going to minimize this. So you should have been able to download this Noah files from D2L. You can right click, 7-zip, and we're going to do extract here. And that should extract us out a folder here with these Noah files in it. So we'll need to copy these files into their correct location. And so for us, that is going to be under our project. And so we will find those. One second here. I have displaced it there. Project 2. And so what I want to do is I want to move my penguin textures into my source images folder. So I'm just going to drag that, drop that there. And yep, place these if I'd already copied them in there, but that's just to show you. And then the Noah rig file, the MB file, that can either go into scenes or assets. And I'll go ahead and drop mine into assets. All right, so now you'll see that they are where we want them to be. Okay, now since they are both under the project folder, hopefully everything will work now. Everything will line up when we import this in. So I'm going to go to File, Import, and I'm going to go to my Assets folder here and find Noah, the Noah rig, and import Noah, and you should come in like this. And hopefully this will work pretty well. So this is Noah. I actually have an animation with Noah already that I can show you. This was just a little test animation that I did with him. And you can see how he renders and how he works. So the point of giving you a fully rigged character already is just so you can practice using a rig that already exists, right? In a lot of the animation classes, that is something you're going to be using. You're going to find rigs that are, stuff you can download online, or you're going to find, somebody else is going to rig a character. But the animator doesn't always do the rigging. A lot of times you're having to work with another rig. And this gives us a chance to actually explore this rig and learn a little bit more about it. Oh, I didn't really mess with that camera. I'm going to do that. So let's open this up and let's just focus in on Noah himself and exploring what this rig is. So you'll be able to see most of him under the Noah rig and model. And I just want to isolate this character just so we can just focus on it, hide all this other stuff. I could hide a bunch of layers, but instead I just selected those two, and I'm going to go to Show, Isolate Selected, View Selected. That way we can just see Noah and all of his features. So Noah is a full FKIK rig for his feet. He has a lot of different things, and so we'll just kind of walk through them one at a time. We're going to start with the main controller, and you'll see on the main controller, this is where we can turn the visibility on and off. It's also where we can scale Noah up and down if we needed a slightly bigger or smaller Noah. The placement controller is something that you use just once. Like, you use this to get your character where you would want them to be. But if my character is walking forward or jumping forward, I don't move this. And the reason for that is because I want the feet to be able to stick to the ground. And if I'm doing this, the feet are moving with it. However, if I grab this arrow and move it, the feet stick to the ground, right? And so that's something that we're going to learn how to do in Project 3. So this controller, if I wanted to move my entire character, what I would usually do is grab this controller and then both of the feet controls, and then I'm able to move the entire character to walk the character forward. This placement controller is where we start our character, but usually we don't animate this very much at all. You'll also see that on this we have a lot of stuff that we can turn on and off. Like if we don't want to see any of the FK controls, we can turn those on and off. Or if I don't want to see any of the IK controls, I can turn those on and off. These aim controls for the eyes, I can turn those on and off. So lots of things that we can adjust in here. So I'm going to walk you through this rig just a little bit more, just to see the different ways it works. So we got our placement controller, this is actually a lot of times called the root or the center of gravity controller. And this is what moves the character's torso around, the entire torso. And by moving this, we can have our character shift their weight from side to side or turn and look around. Right? This is, imagine your hips. Like this is kind of your hip control that allows you to look around at stuff. As you work your way up, you'll see that there's additional controls up the spine. We got this spine control that lets our character sort of bend here and bend here. And this allows our character to really look around and get a much more dynamic pose. It's worth mentioning that you can both rotate and translate these. In most cases, you're going to be rotating them, but sometimes you might want to translate them. The feet have a lot of... Oh, I'll show you one more thing before we get on to the feet. This little peculiar-looking eyeball-shaped controller, this is called the hip swinger. And what this does is it lets you sort of rotate the hips. And why this is nice is if you have your character, let's say, sort of squatting, and you want the head to stay in one orientation, but you want the hips to sort of wiggle around, you can still do that without having to rotate like here and then counter-rotate here to get the character's head back. Right? So this gives you a little bit of that option. It also allows you to do a little bit more like spine tweak with stuff as well. It does not have a translate option. With the feet, we have the ability to pick up the feet, and most of the pivot points with this is the main foot controller, is going to pivot at the ankle. You'll notice that this little arrow out here in front allows us to point our knee. And this is going to kind of give us our angle for our knee. Notice that with a lot of these controllers, there's more attributes on the controllers than just translates, rotates, and scale. So with this foot, you'll notice I also have, let me go ahead and get that foot back on the ground. You'll notice I also have options for swiveling the foot, which would like sort of twist the knee a little bit, rolling the foot, which rolls up on the toe, and then we also have like rock. The other thing we have that's kind of nice is if I pull my foot out to the end here, you'll see that the the controls keep going, but the foot has reached its maximum length. It can't go any further unless we turn on this stretchy option. And the stretchy option will let the foot stretch down and stay with the foot. Now you want to be careful with this because you can feel like a little pop in the knee there if you're not careful. But there's a lot of interesting stuff there. Or if you just decide you want the upper leg to be longer or the lower leg to be longer. So we can really manipulate this. But if you manipulate it too far, it starts to break a little bit, right? So in addition to some of those controls, there's these other controls on the foot as well. And some of them are a little redundant. Right? So this roll option lets you roll your foot forward and back. Well, the back part is what this does as well. And so it allows us to do a little bit of this if you just want your character tapping his foot. You'll also notice we have these controls up here. This one taps the front part of the toe, and the one that crosses it right here actually rolls up on this part of the toe. And then the other thing you'll notice is this in the front rolls up on the tip of the toe. So these are all redundant controls to do the same thing, but you have to be careful, right? Like if I do too much of this, remember now that this control's pivot point is back there. So you just have to kind of plan out how you would want to use this. Each of the toes should have their own controls in case you want to do a little bit of individual toe animation. And that should handle the feet. That's most of the stuff that we have involved with the feet. I will say, right now, these feet are in IK, and that's why they're staying on the ground. And we'll talk about FK, IK later. But the thing you need to remember is that the feet can be in FK or IK. IK means that the feet will stay planted on the ground. FK is if the character were, say, flying through the air. And so this little blue option here will switch our character from FK, or from IK to FK. And so now that foot does not stay planted on the ground. It goes to the floor, but I can rotate this foot, and if the character were flying through the air, they could dangle a little bit more and you wouldn't have to worry about them staying start to the ground. If you decide that maybe you want to animate your character flying, then maybe you would put the feet in FK instead of IK. I do have controls for the beak. He's got the top beak or the bottom beak, and anatomically this is probably actually how the character would really speak, as if they were using the top beak. I would say be a little careful with this, because if you can move these, that dark area in the back is just to cast a shadow in the render, and so it looks a little weird if you get too far off there. You'll notice up at the top here we have these eyes, and the eyes can work in two different ways. We have this aim control, where you pull this forward, and whatever this is looking at, Noah will also look at it. On this aim control, you'll see that I have controls for the lids here. So if I want to do the top lids squinting down, I can. And if I want to do the bottom lids squinting up, I can. Or if I wanted to make the character blink, I can do that. For the most part, though, the lids will kind of follow the eyelid here like this. And you can have it, yeah, so that's as far as it's going to follow it. Yeah, so I'll zero this back out. There's additional ways you can control the eyes. If you want to manually animate them, you can also use these rotation controls here. And they will get little rotations like that. And then each of the little arms, I'm hesitant to call them wings because I know they can't really fly, should have some controls. Now this is more of a clavicle control, so it's going to sort of sink into the body just a little bit. The shoulder would start here, so you can flip that out, and then you can do stuff like this. Alright, so this is how the rig works, and I would advise you to take a little bit of time and play with the rig by itself before you really do too much animation with it. If at any point you want to get the rig back to its default setting, I'll show you how to do that here in a little bit later, or you could just delete the rig and re-import it in.